The following episode will contain spoilers. You have been warned.
You're listening to Cinema IRL, the podcast that throws you into the movie and asks the question, what would you do if you thought your Airbnb guest was a problem? Amber and Scott discuss The Man in My Basement, where it gets super crazy. And now, Cinema IRL.
I wish I could switch places for just one day.
What would you do?
Put yourself in my shoes.
How do we handle this?
What would you do?
Put yourself in my position.
What would you do?
Now it's your turn.
So apparently there's a Man in My Basement.
I heard that.
This is a really clear-cut name for a movie, The Man in My Basement.
Yeah, it's nice to have one of those for once.
In the African-American neighborhood of Sag Harbor, Charles Blakey is out of work, out of luck, and on the verge of foreclosure with his ancestral home. A knock on the door from a mysterious businessman, Aniston Bennett, brings a bizarre and lucrative proposition to rent his dusty stand-up basement out for the summer and receive enough money to clear his debts for good.
Does the description say summer?
That's what I just read.
I did not realize that summer started in November.
Well, he said he'd be there in November. November being in the future.
Yeah.
So our main character, Charles, apparently used to work at a bank, and he lifted about $400 from his drawer, and he lives in a house that 8 generations of his family have lived in, and now he's the last person living in it, and they actually have a kind of a cemetery in the backyard with all of the people from the 8 generations who have died who are buried on the land. And Charles is getting foreclosure notices, and he cannot get another job, and he is struggling financially when Aniston knocks on his door and says, hey, can I rent your basement?
Yeah, so my first what would you do right at this point is I'm not just going to immediately say no. Now, I'm not going to immediately say yes, but he's aware of his financial situation. A guy comes and asks, I'm going to be like, tell me more. What for? And
you are that kind of person, though. You are very receptive to possibilities.
Well, because I always say information's free.
Yeah, that's true.
And
doesn't hurt to listen.
And
if you need to call the cops after, you need to call the cops.
Because that's the thing. He didn't even know what he was offering. I mean, the dude is destitute, barely had 2 nickels to rub together, and he's turning down, without even knowing any details, an offer from an investment banker from Greenwich, Connecticut. Like, let me just tell you, if you are an investment banker from Greenwich, Connecticut, I don't need to know anything else about you to know that you have money.
Well, it's a business card that says that. And I don't know if that's the male-female divide, but just because someone has a business card that says a name and an occupation doesn't mean squat. So I would put no stock in that. I would mostly be concentrating on the guy who randomly knocks on my door saying, can I rent your basement? Like, who the hell are you? Also, too, if you invite someone into your home. He didn't even
ask who the hell he was. He just was like, no.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't want someone in his house. He lived by himself. And yeah, so later on when Charles tries to improve his situation and doesn't have any luck, after some time passes, he does call Aniston and says, okay, tell me more. And there is a lucrative offer made of, I will give you, and you'll probably remember the exact dollar amounts, but what was it, $10,000 before I arrived?
$65,000. No, yeah, $65,000 total, which was $10,000 up, $10,000 as a deposit, $25,000 upon arrival, and $30,000 upon departure. Which, like, mind you, that's actually pretty decent. I mean, okay,
for 65 days.
Price wise aside, the structure is pretty good for Aniston. I mean, how many places can you go to and be like, I'll give you a deposit and I'll give you some up front, but I'm not giving you like almost half of it until I leave. Like, I know of no landlord that would accept that.
Yeah, well, obviously a very unorthodox situation. And when someone's playing around with that money, I mean, what would you do? My first thought is, what bodies or drugs are you hiding in my basement?
Yeah.
Because the other thing, too, that's worth noting here is that Aniston was very particular in wanting to know that this was a stand-up basement, not like something you had to crawl into.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's no spring chicken, and he's probably not going to want to be in a situation where you're having to crawl around. That basement's not necessarily going to do anything for him.
Yeah, it's an unusual circumstance, an unusual offer. So, what would I do in that circumstance? I don't know if even for $65,000, that would fall into the, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is bucket for me, because why in the world would somebody do that? And when someone gets onto your property, then they can start using squatters' rights. And I just don't know if I would want to open up that can of worms unless, I don't know. It's very shady to me. And at the end, when we look at what happened in this movie, I'm still not really even sure what this guy was doing.
Yeah. So
what the whole point to it was anyway.
I'm not concerned about the squatters' rights. I mean, it's clear that he held himself well. He's not someone who's going to slam down $35,000 and start screaming squatters' rights. That's not.
You can't move me out of your basement.
That's not how that works.
I don't know. Maybe he's mentally ill or something.
Yeah, you're not that mentally ill. So I'm not worried about that. I am obviously concerned about what actually is going to take place in said basement.
Well, yeah, because part of this arrangement is there's a delivery that's going to be made before Aniston arrives. And sure enough, Charles takes the deal. And shortly after, a truck shows up with a bunch of kind of nice wooden boxes and deposits them in the basement, along with his first deposit of $10,000.
Yeah. So here is the deal with this one. Charles was not informed by Aniston that he was going to have to basically serve him all of his meals and do all of this. Now, don't get me wrong. If I end up approving the guy in that situation, if you're paying me $1,000 a day,
yeah, I'll bring you.
I'll bring you your meals.
But
it's fine.
That wasn't part of.
Yeah, it wasn't, and it does, it is impactful because.
Yeah, come down and check on me twice a day.
Yeah, you've at least twice a day you have to be there.
Yeah, and
it has to be you because you can't tell anyone.
Yeah, and the thing is for anyone who hasn't seen this peculiar film, is Aniston moves in, he unpacks the boxes, and when Charles goes down the next day to bring him some coffee, because Aniston says, "Can you bring me some coffee the next morning?" He's like, "Sure." So Charles walks down to bring him some coffee, and it turns out there is a big cage, a big cell in the middle of the basement, and Aniston is locked in the cell, and gives Charles the key and says, "Yeah, can you come down and feed me twice a day for the next 65 days.
Okay. So
What would you do?
Well, for one, I would have gotten some better idea as to what he was going to use that basement for. And I would just say, listen, you're offering a lot of money. And
he did ask if it was illegal. And Aniston said no.
It is so much money that I am concerned about this. And so let's just assume that he was like, I'm just using this to think. Okay. Which you could make that case. The jail cell being a little odd, but I think some of the initial concerns were valid. Like, I can't have the cops coming down here and seeing a white guy trapped in a jail cell in
the basement of my house.
In my basement. So here is what I would do. I would say, listen, the perception of this is really bad. Here is what I need. I need you to film a video, a short video that simply says, I am of my own free will. I'm freely locking myself in this jail cell and handing Charles the key, and he's not supposed to hand me the key for 65 days.
Recording videos wasn't so early because this was a period piece. This was likely in the 90s.
I mean, it was 94.
Yeah, so
it was 1994.
Doing a video at that point was possible, but certainly not easy.
I mean, I've got videos of me from the 80s. I mean, there are cameras. It's possible. I would have done. You needed, or maybe it was a signed letter. Maybe it was something. And then once you sign it, I know this is a lot to go through, but this was me thinking about this from both people's perspective. If you're Charles, you need to be covered. If you're Aniston, you need to make sure that nobody else knows. So I get myself some form of a safe. I have them do the video, sign the note, whatever I'm using, put that safe probably right outside the jail cell or maybe even in the jail cell with Aniston locked. So Charles can't get to this to be like, see who's in my basement without Aniston clearly knowing about it. And Aniston can't go in and remove the proof because Charles has the combination. I mean, and given the amount of money, it would have been worth it for me to go get a safe. Even if it was just like one of those little lock boxes, like the really fortified lock boxes, that'd be fine. And anything that could protect me in that situation, because I'm asking a lot of freaking questions. But the problem is $65,000 for 65 days buys you the ability to not be asked a lot of questions, honestly.
Yeah, and Charles had lots of questions, and Aniston wasn't interested in answering them. And as time passed, they kind of made a bargain where Charles says, okay, well, I can ask you any questions I want. You have to answer. And Aniston says, okay, I'm going to counter with, for every 3 questions you ask me, I get to ask you a question, and we all have to be honest with each other. So what was the plan of Charles going down and, bringing Aniston food twice a day as Aniston read books and, sat under his lamp and, had his solitary time for whatever reason? At that point, we're not really quite sure. And it devolved very quickly into Charles getting frustrated and walking away for days at a time, not feeding Aniston or turning off the lights and leaving him in complete darkness for up to 4 days. And obviously not at all what they had agreed upon.
Yeah, I was about to say, even in a scenario where you've said it's okay for me to be locked up and everything, that actually still would be, at that point, would probably be considered kidnapping. Like the fact that you're not providing basic essentials as part of an agreement, like no one's going to agree to that.
And what we learn later is that actually is in Charles' DNA because he let his uncle die when his mom passed away and he was in the house and left there with his uncle, who was terrible to him. And as his uncle got progressively sick, Charles just kind of let him be sick and, let him holler for help and scream for help until ultimately he died from neglect. So I mean, that's kind of Charles' MO.
Well, is it Charles's MO or was it this horrible freaking person who's been terrible to me my entire freaking life?
But withholding care seems to be, that's his.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's an MO. I can't deal with this person. I can't deal with this person. I can't deal with this person. Like,
I don't know if you get to do that, though, when there's nobody else coming around to help that person. And there was no one coming around to help his uncle and no one coming around to help the caged Aniston.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I know you love when we date episodes with certain things.
I do not.
But, like, the whole Charlie Kirk thing has happened. And there's been a lot of talk on the internet about whether or not you should have baseline empathy for someone dying, like just in general, or is it fine to not based on the circumstances of who the person was? Now, because of the circles I mostly run in, most of the responses I saw were that it's fine to not, especially if that person is fairly diametrically opposed to you and is actively doing things to try to make your life more difficult. So I think, and this is worse, this is somebody who has spent their life making your life hell, and you didn't necessarily agree to take them on. You got stuck with them. And you don't want to get stuck with someone you've mistreated your entire life. You just don't.
Yeah, I mean, and there's obviously a lot of gray area between running and catering to someone every time they ring a bell versus complete and total neglect until they die.
Yes. So yeah.
Like at that point, you at least have to turn them over to the state or abandon them at a hospital. I don't know, something. You have to do something to put them in the care of some other entity or person.
I mean, yeah, one could make that argument. Listen, I want nothing to do with this person. They're a ward. There's no other family. They are a ward. But would they have been a ward? Because, like, he still had his aunt that he was talking to. Like, there is family.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But yeah, what he did to Aniston, it's not cool. And, like, you've got to think, like, when you're being paid that much money, like, it's obviously not just for the basement. It's for you to shut up. Honestly, don't ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that relationship would have been fine if he had just done that. And listen, I'm not going to ask you anything. If you ask me a question that I'm comfortable answering, I'll answer it. But otherwise, I don't need to know.
And it started off mild. It started off with Charles bringing Aniston dinner because he was out at a bar and then he met a girl. And Aniston was like, you can't do that to me.
That's not
but if you need to go out and go out with someone, just say, hey, I gotta stop home and feed the dog, and drop me some food. So, but
or just figure out a way of bringing him extra food ahead of time. Say, listen, I'm going to be out, so here's something extra if I'm not back on time. At least then he's got something.
So what would you do is we would make a Costco run and bring some extra supplies so he has something handy.
I mean, if we need to.
So the rest of this movie goes in and out of things that are dreams or hallucinations, and it's kind of hard to follow. Number one, what's really happening there, and we kind of get the impression at some point that maybe there's some sort of spiritual entity in the house, and we never get 1,000% clarity as to why Aniston is really there, because we find out later in the film that he's a bad guy, he's done a lot of bad things, but somehow being left in the dark, he feels like he has been greeted by the ghosts of the people he's killed. And
I mean, in a way, he found what he was looking for, even though it came in a terrifying way.
So I guess, I mean, what would you do is if someone came to me with this offer, and assuming that I actually took them up on it, which would be highly unlikely, what would I do? I consider myself a person of integrity, and I would meet the terms that we had agreed upon or return the money in full, because he gave the money away because he used it to give it to the bank since his house was at risk. So he didn't have the money. And that's actually something I think from a what would you do standpoint that I'm actually very mindful of, is the handling of money. If someone does something like that, I would never spend the money and then be in a compromised position if I needed to get out of that, be like, here's your money back. That money would go untouched for 60 days, or at least the, 75% of it.
You just have to say, if I'm willing to spend this,
I'm willing to
I'm willing to accept whatever happens down there at this point, because it's whatever. Though
that's why I wouldn't do it.
I have a what would you do.
Okay.
I don't know if this is the greatest what would you do for you, all factors considered.
All right.
So check me if I'm wrong here, but as a human being, we mostly have 2 arms, 2 hands, right?
Yeah.
If you are holding a mask with one hand and jerking off while it's still in your pants with the other, how does that end? Like, how does that end?
I'm not a guy. I really don't know these things.
Yeah.
I don't do porn, so I don't know these things.
Like, if he's got it out, then maybe he's just got his favorite wall that he hits. I don't know, but...
Okay, yeah. For those not familiar with the film, there was a scene where Charles is masturbating and he's discovered some sort of ancestral mask, and in some sort of weird way he puts on the mask.
He puts the mask on while he's jerking off, and it seems to really get him going.
Because he's looking at the female newscaster through the holes in the mask.
But even if there's nothing weird, he still has both his hands occupied, and his member is
I don't know how this works. I mean, this is a conversation between you and the dudes who are listening. I honestly don't know how this.
Do you
work.
just immediately go to the shower? Like if you're,
I don't know what kind of distance you guys get with those things, or
it's variable. It's variable, and that is where lies the problem.
Yeah,
it's variable.
Yeah.
So, it was an interesting situation for this entire movie. I'm definitely willing to listen, given the terms, especially being him. I'm saying, come on down. Okay. But I just wouldn't ask a lot of questions.
So my last, what would you do? Because there was a lot in here as for what would you do is at the end, Aniston kills himself and Charles goes down and, oh my gosh, Aniston's dead in the cage. And so he buries Aniston in the graveyard, the family graveyard in the house. And it turns out Aniston also left letters to his multiple wives and families and other people and saying, will you please deliver them? And Charles burned them. What would you do having had this very tumultuous relationship with a man camped out in your basement who you've been led to believe is a bad guy, but you've also done a lot of bad things too?
That's a chicken shit move. Burning them. You mail them. I think you mail them. And you're not putting your name on any of them.
I would go to another state and mail them. So there would be no association with my town.
I mean, maybe whatever.
I would probably read them because for all I know, it'd be like, hi, I'm in Charles's basement and he murdered me. Who knows what they said. I would open up and I would read them. And if there was nothing incriminating, I would drive to another state and I would mail them.
You can just go a town or two over. Yeah, I think that's like the way their relationship ended.
Oh, because also too important
was tumultuous, but not hatred.
Aniston left the money next to his dead body to make good on the deal with Charles. So up until the last moment, actually, even though he was a bad guy, Aniston actually was a man of integrity in fulfilling his arrangement with Charles, which I actually think feeds into if you wanted to mail some letters, he gave you $65,000, paying up when he could have said, I'm dead. Sorry, you don't get the other $30,000, but he did.
Mail the letters.
Mail the letters.
Mail the letters.
We hope you enjoyed our episode. Thank you for listening. And to catch all the new episodes, please subscribe. We release 2 to 3 episodes weekly, so we'll have new content regularly. Until next time.